My name is Captain Barrington Irving. In 2007, I set a Guinness World Record to become the youngest person and first black man to fly solo around the world. I took the record from age 37 down to age 23. I'm not only a pilot, I'm also an entrepreneur and also an explorer for National Geographic. I grew up in Opelika and also Liberty City, graduated Miami Northwestern Senior High School, attended Florida Memorial University as well as Broward College. And this very same airport that I'm sitting in, I remember when I first came here, I had 3 holes in the bottom of my shoes, and I was able to sacrifice and turn that into success. I came from very humble beginnings. My family moved me from Jamaica here to Miami Gardens, and then we moved into Opelika. While growing up, we didn't have much. I remember it was a big deal back then to get like my first pair of Nikes or be able to afford a Jan Sport book bag, right? It was not an easy transition. Of course, I had an accent. You know, some of the kids in school make fun of that. But one of the things that was truly difficult was being poor, right? And later in life, I realized how poverty actually became a great asset for me. And I used to hate being poor. It sucked. I absolutely hated it. You know, why couldn't my family have a nice car? You know, why is it during middle school, I'll be so embarrassed in my dad's truck, I'll ask him to drop me off or pick me up from the corner. I mean, that's like real situations, you know, but that's what makes us, you know, and that's what teaches you how to sacrifice and what type of life you want for yourself. Things for me didn't change until I got into high school and I started playing ball for Miami Northwestern Senior High School. At the time we were ranked 3rd in the nation, moved on to be ranked number 1 in the nation, and that's when I started to feel a sense of purpose, right? Football was everything, just like any other kid who discovers they have talent in a sport or in a certain field. I realized I had that in football. But my life was shifted and changed when I had a chance meeting with an airline pilot. This guy steps out of a white Lincoln Navigator with his suit on, looking nice and crisp, and I'm just saying to myself, this brother looks like he makes a lot of money. So he sees that I'm staring at him, walks over to me and says to me, hey son, have you ever considered pursuing a career in aviation? I told him no, I didn't think I was smart enough. Like most kids, like you look at certain career fields and you're like, man, that ain't for me, I don't think I can do it. Well, guess what? I asked him one question. I said, how much money do you make? His response, he said, I make $117 an hour. When he told me that, I took an interest in aviation, and because I was willing to explore something different, interest turned into passion, and I actually ended up turning down football scholarships to pursue a career in aviation. Greatest decision I ever made, and I discovered something that I'm passionate about. I discovered something that has changed the quality of my life, and I make a lot more than $117 an hour. So, you know, it was amazing to be able to meet another black man in the community who opened up my eyes to something I never thought was possible for me. And I grew up literally less than 2 miles from this airport. My father was always working. My mom was always working and sacrificing. For example, they never see me play a game of football. That's how hard they work. And of course, they made sure, both I and my brother, you know, I had 2 younger brothers, that we didn't have to, you know, we weren't abandoned in any case. But yeah, there were times where we didn't have much of anything to eat and those type of things. And my parents, you know, it's a typical immigrant story. You know, you come to this country, you sacrifice, and I vividly remember, you know, in front of our house, on the right-hand side, there was a dope house. So like every other weekend, you'll see like police helicopters shining the lights down, or there'll be shootouts. And where I grew up was so rough. We had bicycles, right? My parents would never let us ride our bikes outside of our little yard. Crazy, but that's the environment we grew up in. I saw my first dead body, meaning, you know, from a crime, walking to school when I was in 9th grade. I was, you know, going to Northwestern, and then all of a sudden that becomes the norm. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's crazy. I think sometimes we look and analyze and say, why is it we don't have more students pursuing greater things in life? It's tough to overcome some of those challenges and adversities. You know, it really is tough to overcome that. And you have to be very strong-minded, strong-willed, and let's be honest, you're going to need a mentor every now and again, and you're going to need motivation, something pushing you, something encouraging you, you know, to move forward. A moment in life when I really struggled was when I was trying to fly around the world. I was trying to fundraise. People were telling me no. For 2.5 years, people told me no before I got my first yes in support of me flying around the world. And I think a lot of black men struggle with this, where you kind of begin to doubt yourself and your potential and your worth as a human being. So I remember when I wanted to fly around the world, quite simply just to inspire kids, knew nothing about setting any Guinness World Records. I couldn't get any manufacturers to support me. I couldn't get anyone to just give me a chance. You know, a lot of times, you know, we just want to be heard. We just want to be able to share ideals and thoughts and concepts. And, you know, a lot of times it just immediately gets shut down and we don't know how to pivot. And I had to learn how to pivot, you know, and I remember wanting to give up because in order to fly around the world, what's the first thing you need? An airplane. And I remember I couldn't get any manufacturers to let me rent one, let me lease one, let me borrow one, nothing. And that's when I really had to think outside the box. And you know how I got around it? I learned from the hood. What exactly do I mean that I learned from the hood? I was never a part of this growing up, but you'd see guys that steal cars, right? When I say steal cars, they steal the car from somewhere, bring it into the neighborhood, and you see them strip the car. When I saw them stripping the vehicles, I was saying to myself, hold on, different companies make different parts of a vehicle? I thought it was only one company because you only see one logo on the front and back of the car. So when I realized that, that's how I learned about different equipment manufacturers. I took that knowledge and then I looked at an airplane and I said, who are all the different companies that manufacture this plane? Came up with a list of 42 different companies. Then I said, okay, I'm not going to ask them for cash. I'm going to ask them to donate the part that they manufacture and they'll get a tax write-off. It was a long shot, but from the engine to the seats to the cockpit system down to the tires, I was able to get all these different parts donated and sponsored, and that's how I hacked the system, got my hands on my first airplane, which cost $650,000, by taking something negative in my community, turning it into knowledge and something positive. And a lot of black men don't get the opportunity to do that. I had to become really resourceful in order to figure that out. Before I flew around the world, I actually started a nonprofit organization called Experience Aviation. Because everybody was like, you're crazy, you're too young to be trying to fly around the world, you're going to kill yourself, you don't have the money, you don't have the experience. So I started a nonprofit, and within that nonprofit was a learning center. Now understand, when I started community outreach, my own nonprofit, my own learning center, I was like, man, I don't know if this is for me. Because to be quite honest, when I was in school, I honestly didn't like school that much. Part of the reason why I didn't like school that much is because teachers struggled to answer 3 simple questions. When am I ever going to use this in life? Why does this matter? And who honestly cares? And that's why I really didn't like school that much. But I started an organization whose sole purpose was to give students real-life practical experiences of how you use science and math. So we've had students build airplanes from scratch and then fly it. We've had students build a race car from scratch. We've had students build cars faster than Ferraris. So what we do is we allow students to build amazing things that's empowering for them. And I also have another curriculum company, which we call the Flying Classroom, where I literally transform my airplanes into a real-life magic school bus and travel around the world practically exploring math and science. As part of our Experience Aviation program, one of our students was Trayvon Martin, who was a great student in our program. As a matter of fact, till this day, I still have his application pinned to our wall. And on the application, he literally writes down what he wants to be when he grows up. And he said he wants to become an aircraft mechanic / pilot. And of course, we all remember our days in high school. We did things that were silly. We did things that were questionable. But he was a good kid. And you know when stuff like that hits you? Is I looked at a picture of Trayvon Martin doing a robotics activity with some of our other students. And the other students in the picture, one student is a professional pilot in Europe. The other student is a certified airframe and power plant mechanic. The other student is a doctor, and Trayvon Martin is no longer breathing and living. And Trayvon Martin's death honestly inspired me in protesting in a different manner. You see, I wasn't able to go out and protest or do any of that. How I decided to protest was to change education. I'm only 33 years old, and I was a kid who couldn't stand school. And to go from that to where I am now, not only as an educator, not only as an entrepreneur, not only as a pilot, but just someone who genuinely cares about children in our community, I couldn't ask God for anything else.